Hello, dear friends. We need to remember from time to time our wonderful old legends so as to not be swept away by the neuroses of the financial crisis. Opinion piece. The Dwelling of Immortals. In high-frequency places like the island of Avalon, the mists of Avalon cover the place with their veil. Some souls now feel the call of Avalon. Avalon is the refuge of mankind's dreams. Others place it on the Canary island of Borondon. Robert Graves believed that Avalon was in Mallorca. The Chinese speak of 8 hidden immortals. The mystery of our legends produces fascination. There was a time when love and magic came together. Follow your dream, follow your passion, and create the new world. Why mourn for the old when there is a new garden? Don't spend your energy on watching the old fall, but on creating the new. Gas crisis threatens Europe with a winter of no heat and no meat. 3 million European workers can't earn enough to pay for heat. Fed to cut Treasury bond purchases, raise interest rates. New ransomware attack threatens global food supply. Trump sues Nice and the New York Times for investigating his finances. Sulfur dioxide cloud to cover mainland Spain starting Friday. A biblical expert predicted that Spain would be devastated by a volcanic eruption. The financial world pending the immediate future of the construction company Evergrande. Let's start. Throughout history, there have been groups of immortal human beings who have moved away from the low frequency, and for their safety, they have taken refuge beyond their current reality in places of high spiritual frequency, such as islands or mountains. Now that the earth is raising her frequency, the veil that has placed is being lifted. We are in a new cycle, a new wheel, a return to a reality filled with more wonder and magic. Change is in front of everyone. The opportunity is present to reclaim within themselves all that was lost behind the veil. Each must ask themselves whether they want to spend their energy watching the collapse or the old or building the new. In all of humankind's spiritual traditions, it is stated that immortality is one of the Creator's promises to human beings who demonstrate goodness or follow divine law. What forms an endless human life would take, or whether an immaterial soul exists and possesses immortality, has been a major point of focus, as well as a subject of speculation and debate. Taoism. According to the Taoist tradition of China, the human being has a physical body and a body composed only of energy or qi. With proper physical practices comprising Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong, as well as righteous conduct of life, the development of qi and its sacred embryo called Sheng Tai can be achieved. By developing Sheng Tai, qi leaves the body and the human becomes one of the immortals. The 8 immortals form a group of deities of Chinese mythology, according to which they existed earthly and were born during the Tang or Song dynasties, practicing the techniques of alchemy and the methods of immortality. They were first described during the Yuan dynasty and in Western literature prior the 1970s are sometimes referred to as the 8 Genii. They are revered in Chinese popular culture and are known as the 8 Hidden Immortals. Message from Merlin. Your wealth is changing drastically. Your system can no longer adequately meet the needs of the ascending human. You can either contemplate collapse without doing anything, or you can create structures for people to move into when the time comes. Change is on the way. There will be chaos, but much can be mitigated by creating new structures or systems that can be accessed. If a system fails and there is nothing to replace it, chaos would reign for longer. In that space of urgency, it would be more difficult to create the new, as it would be created in reaction rather than in passion. Many of you have ideas, passions, ambitions. However, much of your energy is taken up concentrating on collapse. We ask you now to build the new. Follow your dreams, follow your passion, follow the impulses and create. Being present and no resisting allows the flow of information and ideas to emerge. Now is the time to plan, organize, visualize your garden for spring. Why bemoan dying crops when there is a whole new garden to plant? Avalon calls. If you have felt a call, be assured that when you go, you will experience it as a homecoming, as if the memories awakened there belong to you from long ago, and remind you that there was a time when power, love, and magic went hand in hand in perfect harmony, as if you remember that your soul experienced this at some point, either because you connect with the collective unconscious that unfolds there, or because you are rescuing ancestral memories that dwell in you. Avalon is an enigmatic island that rises among the mists of the swamps. Its notoriety lies in its supernatural privileges. In this land, the rules of nature are altered to give way to magic, a place similar to the paradise of Adam and Eve. In the lands of Ávalon, apple trees bear tasty fruits all year round, and cereals grow in abundance. Its inhabitants have no need to work in the fields, and live an idyllic existence, enjoying a longevity much higher than the average in those times. Also, 9 fairy queens live in Avalon, among them the popular Morgana, half-sister of King Arthur. Avalon is the mythical island where King Arthur rests, a legendary island covered with mysterious mists, and where the present world has no place, where only the magic and ancient mites of the British Isles exist. In Avalon, the legends are alive and are hidden from the sight of the present world, feeding its mystery. Avalon is the refuge of dreams. Avalon is the name of a legendary island of Celtic mythology somewhere in the British Isles, where, according to legend, apple trees bear tasty fruit all year round, and 9 fairy queens dwell, among them Morgana. That is why it is called the Island of Apples. Avalon is a legendary island that appears in Arthurian legend. It first appears in Geoffrey of Monmouth's 1136, The History of the Kings of Britain, as the place where King Arthur's sword, called Excalibur, was forced, and later Arthur was taken to recover after being badly wounded at the Battle of Camelot. Since then, the island has become a symbol of Arthurian mythology, similar to Arthur's Castle Camelot. Some traditions believe that Arthur had never really died, but would return to lead his people against their enemies. Many place it at Glastonbury, others on the Isle of Man. There has also been talk of its possible location on the coast of Brittany in France, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, and even on the island of Mallorca in Spain. Legend places Avalon somewhere unspecified in the British Isles, although as early as the beginning of the 11th century, some of the Arthurian traditions indicate that this place may be located at Glastonbury, where, before the Somerset Plain area was dredged, there was a hill Glastonbury Tor that rose like an island in the middle of the marshes. Some scholars of the Arthurian legends have placed Avalon on the Isle Ávalon off the coast of Brittany, while others have located it at Burgh by Sands in Cumberland, next to Hadrian's Wall, where the Roman fort of Avalava was erected, and others closer to Camboglana, in what is now called Castlesteads. In any case, as can be seen, many are those who claim for themselves the true location of Avalon, the Island of Apples. It seems that the mists of Avalon shroud King Arthur's resting place with a mythical veil. After the battle with Mordred, Arthur, dying, was taken to the Avalon by Morgana, the sorceress and half-sister of the king. In Morgana's boat were several women, some known, Igraine, Elaine, Nimue, and others whose names are not mentioned, the Queen of North Wales, the Queen of the Wastelands, or the Queen of the Tempests. In some legends, only these fairies escort the king to the Isle of Apples. It is said that Arthur was laid in a golden bed, and the fairy Morgana continues to watch over the body of her brother. It is also thought that Avalon and the Norse world of Helheim are the same place, but with a different name. The British novelist, poet, and mythologist Robert Graves considers in his work The Golden Fleece that the real Avalon was located on the island of Mallorca, Spain, where he took up residence. Excuse me, because my cat is making noise. The island of Saint Bradans is a mythical island located somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean and related to the voyages of the Irish monk Saint Brendan the Navigator in search of the earthly paradise or the garden of earthly delights. According to legend, Saint Brendan, a 6th century Irish monk and the abbot of Clonfat in Galway, at the request of Barinto, who was already visited the place, set out with 14 other monks on a long voyage in a small boat. Excuse me. In his 7-year ocean wanderings, Brendan encountered numerous islands and faced some sea monsters. Finally, after crossing a hidden sea of dense mists, that prevents those who do not go in the name of God from returning, he reached the island of earthly paradise. The voyage of Saint Brandan links with travellers' tales from Irish mythology, such as the voyage of Maelduin, composed in the 7th-8th century, and with Islamic tales, which in turn link with Hellenistic traditions, such as the voyage of Sinbad the Sailor, and others, a thesis defended by Miguel Asín Palacios, who affirmed the Islamic origin of such tales. In turn, the mythical voyage will influence other narratives spread throughout Western Europe, such as the travel narratives of Saint Malo in Brittany or Saint Amaro in Spain. Saint Borondon Island. The island of San Borondon is a popular legend from the Canary Islands, Spain, about an island that has been appearing and disappearing for several centuries, and has even been photographed several times, originating from the legendary voyage of Saint Brandan de Clonfat, San Borondon. The island has been known in Europe as the island of Saint Brandan since its depiction by medieval cartographers. In the Canary Islands, the myth was enthusiastically adopted and adapted, even in the name, to the local idiosyncrasy. Due to its strange characteristics and behavior, such as appearing and disappearing or hiding behind a thick layer of fog or clouds, it has been called inaccessible, the non-trubada, the encubierta, the perdida, the encantada, and some other names. The Treaty of Alcasovas, signed between Spain and Portugal in 1479 to territorially divide up the Atlantic, which had yet not been navigated, clearly specified that San Borondon belonged to the Canary archipelago. San Borondon Bay, province of Buenos Aires, Argentina, was so named during Magellan's expedition in March 1520, in the belief that it had been formed by the detachment of the island of San Borondon from the American continent. Position and configuration. Leonardo Torriani, engineer commissioned by Philip II to fortify the Canary Islands at the end of the 16th century, describes its dimensions and locations and provides, as proof of its existence, the fortuitous arrivals of some sailors throughout that century. The island is located to the west of the archipelago, 550 kilometers west-northwest of El Hierro, and 220 kilometers west-southwest of La Palma, although, according to other witnesses, it is located directly between the islands of La Palma, La Gomera, and El Hierro. San Borondon would measure 480 kilometers long from north to south and 155 kilometers wide from east to west, forming towards the middle a considerable concavity and rising on the sides in two very high mountains, the largest of which is the one in the northern part. Economy. Fed signals, gradual tapering on bond purchases coming soon, rate hikes in 2022. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday cleared the way for tapering its monthly bond purchases, soon, in quotes, and signaled that interest rate increases could follow more quickly than expected. 6 former Treasury chiefs urged raising debt limit. 6 former Treasury secretaries asked congressional leaders to raise the federal debt limit without delay, saying a default would cause serious economic and national security damage, and that delay would also be harmful. Treasury's rally. Treasury's price rose Wednesday after the Fed said it would soon reduce its monthly bond buying and signaled that higher interest rates could follow faster than expected. Fed to soon release paper on central bank digital currency. The Federal Reserve will soon release research examining the costs and benefits of a central bank digital currency, Chairman Jerome Powell said Wednesday. Wall Street ends higher. Stocks closed sharply higher Wednesday as investors took in stride the latest signals from the Fed, including opening the way for the central bank to soon reduce its monthly bond purchases. The IBEX 35 conquers 1,700 points and only 4 stocks end in the red. The rest of the European stock markets have also recovered from the impact suffered in the previous day, with gains of 0.96% in London, 1.5% in Paris, 1.43% in Frankfurt, and 1.22% in Milan. The Spanish index is moving away from the psychological barrier of 800 and 600 points after the turmoil over the Evergrande situation, which put investors and world stock markets on alert. Excuse me. The cat again. Cryptocurrencies continue to fall. The world's most popular cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, continued to trade in the red on Wednesday after a day in which it briefly fell below $40,000 for the first time since August. Other leading cryptocurrencies also traded lower. Supplies. New ransomware attack threatens food supply. Another massive cyber attack on a major agricultural group has forced the service providers' systems offline. The attack is believed to have been carried out by a successor of the Colonial Pipeline hack. Farmers face supply shortages and higher costs after Hurricane Ida. The storm disrupted shipments of grain and soybeans from the Gulf Coast, which accounts for about 60% of exports at a time when global agricultural supplies are tight and demand from China is strong. Rising supply costs threaten the incomes of farmers who had bet on booming profits this year as crop prices soared to the highest in nearly a decade. Iraq warns of rising oil demand as global gas crisis worsens. Iraq warned that the demand for oil is likely to rise as tightening supply in natural gas market forces consumers to seek alternative fuels, echoing views from OPEC member Nigeria. JP Morgan faces oil bribery probe in Brazil. Brazilian authorities are investigating whether JP Morgan Chase & Co. played a role in an alleged bribery and money laundering scheme that dates back to 2011 and involved state oil companies Petrobras. Trump sues Nice New York Times over investigation into his finances. Former President Trump on Tuesday filed a lawsuit against his niece Mary Trump and the New York Times over their plot to obtain his tax returns as part of a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation into his finances. The lawsuit, which estimates $100 million in damages, was filed in Dutchess County, New York State. Europe. Gas crisis threatens Europe with a winter without heat and meat. A shortage of natural gas in Europe has caused prices to soar, leading to a number of spillover effects, including the risk of food shortages and the bankruptcy of energy suppliers. The problem is likely to spread to the rest of Europe in the coming months and threaten the nascent economic recovery business analysts have begun to warn. 2 fertilizer plants in the UK have been forced to close due to higher wholesale gas prices. Europe prepares for a winter with rising electricity prices. The cold months are approaching and within the usual increase in energy costs. But this year the bill will be higher. In Spain, the price of electricity has reached historic heights, and in Italy, cost increases at around 40% are expected, a real burden for European families. 3 million European workers cannot afford to pay for heating. Almost 3 million workers in the European Union cannot afford to heat their homes during the cold season due to the very low wages they received, revealed the European Trade Union Confederation. Rising gas prices impact heavy industry and supply chains. The record global price of natural gas is pressuring some energy-intensive companies to cut production in a trend that adds to disruption in global supply chains. In some sectors, such as food, and could lead to higher costs for their customers. I'm laughing for my gut, for the noise of my gut again. US says Europe's energy crisis raises concerns about manipulation. Rising natural gas prices in Europe have raised serious concerns about the reliability of supply in the region and should prompt a US response, according to Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. End of Merkel era in Germany. The Merkel era is coming to an end. 16 years ago, in 2005, this German physicist and politician not only rose to the top of power, but was the youngest person and the first woman to become Germany's federal chancellor. The use of renewable energies polarizes the election debate. Winds of change are blowing in Germany. General elections will be held on September 26, and the new government will face a tough challenge to make the country emission neutral by 2045, as stipulated in the latest national law passed. UK faces looming food crisis as CO2 prices soar. The price of carbon dioxide could soar by 500% in Britain. The government warned its food producers on Wednesday after extending a state of emergency support to avert a food shortage. The warning comes as rising gas prices in Europe has sent shockwaves through industries that rely on natural gas, forcing some fertilizer plants to close. Africa. Algeria closes airspace to Moroccan aviation as dispute deepens. Algeria's Supreme Security Council decided Wednesday to close the country's airspace to all Moroccan civilian and military aircraft. The Algerian presidency said, less than a month after it could cut diplomatic relations with the kingdom. Lava slows down its destructive advance in a phase of relative stability. The volcano of La Palma continues to spit lava, which continues its destructive advance as the neighbors of Todoque can testify, although slowly, in an eruptive phase of relative stability that experts ignore how long it will last. The scientific committee even doubts that the magma, which moves at 4 meters per hour, will flow into the sea. A cloud of sulfur dioxide will partially cover Peninsula Spain from Friday. The volcano of La Palma, still in full eruption, has become a factory of sulfur dioxide, SO2, for the atmosphere. This Friday, a large cloud of this substance is expected to cover much of the Iberian Peninsula and almost all Morocco and Tunisia. This was indicated by the European satellite system Copernicus. An expert warns that the biblical code predicts that Spain would be devastated by a volcanic eruption and a tidal wave. An expert in biblical prophecies assures that the Bible has a hidden message that predicts that Spain would be destroyed by a terrible mega tsunami. The great catastrophe would take place after the eruption of a volcano in the Canary Islands. As reported by the British newspaper Daily Star, the YouTuber Physic T. Chase said that Cumbre Vieja y La Palma would be the first area of the country to feel the west part of the Great Wave. He then claims that it would react to the coast of North Africa. The theory is based on a computer program that takes sections of the Bible and rearranges the words. The other words that appear are the high mountain, wave, tide, and Canary. Even the mega tsunami would reach as far as Britain and America. I wish it fails, of course. China. China starts buying winter gasoline at the worst possible time. China is increasing its purchase of liquefied natural gas for the winter, exacerbating global supply shortages and leaving less fuel for an energy-parched Europe. Rising energy prices become a major headache for China. Europe is being devastated by an unprecedented energy crisis that is already spreading. Asia, the world's largest buyer of gas and coal, may be the next, and China is particularly vulnerable because of the size of its economy. The big problem for China is not natural gas, it's coal, which fuels most of its power plants. The financial world is watching the immediate future of construction company Evergrande. Investors around the world are watching nervously as one of China's biggest real estate developers struggles to avoid defaulting on tens of billions of euros of debt, fueling fears of potential shockwaves for the financial system. Evergrande's domestic debt settlement calms immediate contagion worries. China Evergrande agreed to settle interest payments on a domestic bond on Wednesday as China's central bank pumped cash into the banking system, temporarily calming fears of imminent contagion from the debt-laden property developer. Xu Xianjing, the founder of Evergrande, went from being the richest Chinese to losing most of his fortune. Born in the countryside and raised in abject poverty, the tycoon has had ties to top Chinese officials and made no secret of his penchant for luxury, which would have hurt him during anti-corruption campaigns and the process toward common prosperity in quotes. Evergrande, China's second largest real estate company, is in the crosshairs of global markets after it plunged to 11-year lows on Monday due to an acute liquidity crisis. Although it has recovered slightly since then, it is down nearly 80% so far this year, sparking fears of a bubble collapse in the Chinese economy, a fear that has hit stock markets and cryptocurrencies. What financial weapons of mass destruction tells us about Evergrande? Wall Street traders are betting that the world's financial wiring is insulated from Evergrande's troubles, but that doesn't mean the global economy is immune from the fallout. As the Chinese real estate developer and its $300 billion in debt teeter on the brink of default, turmoil in China's property market is hitting equity markets and boosting demand for government bonds. The unrest is also showing up in credit default swaps linked to two major banks, from Industrial and Commercial Bank of China to JP Morgan in New York. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.